Warcraft, the never-ending battle between orcs and humans, and arguably the best fantasy RTS series out there. The first installment was released at the start of the golden age of Blizzard Entertainment in 1994. Because Blizzard was small, there were not many artists involved in the concept art.
Swobo.
However, they took huge inspiration of Warhammer, with, believe it or not, a theme based on lost Vikings. Indeed, I'm talking about this game. The artists, mainly consisting out of Sam Weiss and Chris Metzen, did their utmost best to create a believable fantasy setting based on no script or plot at all. Actually, at first, Warcraft was intentioned as a sagas, making an RTS setting for other types of games like Warcraft Vietnam. Yup, STP could have looked like this. No joke. Glad they didn't went through though, because the second and especially the third game were excellent. The art complexity improved as not only the skill level increased, the graphics could handle more details on the character models as well. Tiny add-ons like marks, emblems and ornaments could be seen in the most basic units. Also because the whole team had a better handle on the established world and the newly formed lore, written by Chris Metzen. All little details became more coherent and increased in believability. I think adding story to illustrations is the thing that makes art way more appealing. Just for a simple example, left we have a dude bowing for an orc, and right a death knight raising an undead army. Now, this is Gul'dan, who pleads for his life after his betrayal on the Horde. He convinces the orc chieftain to raise an undead army that will be loyal to him. However, in the shadows, he raised his army to overthrow the chieftain when the time is right. Of course, there is way more to it, but like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But the context behind the illustration is what makes a story and emotion come to life. In my eyes, which is biased, Warcraft is the best out there when we talk about orc design. There are only a few other popular sources that compete with something so brutal, powerful and convincing. The Warcraft 2 manual featured abundant images showcasing units, abilities and structures. It's always nice to see the artist's creative vision of showcases such as structures, vehicles and tools that align with the unique characteristics of each race. In this regard, Warcraft is undoubtedly among the best in the genre. One of my personal favorites was this image of the troll. Look at how menacing and tribal its appearance is, especially when we compare it to the first installment. Also, the add-on of tusks in Warcraft 3 gave them another layer of personality. There are many of these seemingly low-key additions that, through the games, stacked up into something memorable. Agreed, this made Warcraft 3 by far the pinnacle of the trilogy. It came out in 2002, and although 7 years of development may seem long compared to Warcraft 2, that's also one thing that made Blizzard so great. They took their time for quality. They really improved on each installment in appearance, lore, music and gameplay. It didn't matter if you had played Warcraft 3 or World of Warcraft. The name Warcraft became a common household name for any gamer. Just as a fun trivia, the name itself was chosen because it just sounded cool. Interestingly, both games were developed at the same time, with the intention of using the same engine. Aside from being Blizzard's first attempt at 3D, they initially tried to make the style more realistic, which didn't work out. Artist Sam Weiss stated in an interview that they went for a stylized approach with flat, simple colors, less shading and bulkier unit proportions to make units easier to read from a top-down camera. However, this new 3D approach was a hard and painful experience for the developers who were accustomed to pixel art. Nonetheless, this is also one of the reasons why the game remains timeless compared to many others that were developed in the early 2000s. That said, the art team increased in size and created way more full-blown illustrations, including personalized units in the form of hero characters.
Are you hero and obey?
In my opinion, this was an excellent move by Blizzard in terms of gameplay and entertainment, because it gave us players a strong connection with the characters as they progressed through the campaign, such as the striking story of the paladin Arthas and his transformation into the Lich King. Additionally, the RPG element was a perfect setup for custom games such as Defense of the Ancients. One could clearly see that Blizzard had a lot of fun adding new races and mercenaries such as Pandaren. a drunken kung fu panda.
I bring pandemonium!
Sam Wise in particular created a lot of the concept art, such as the Demon Hunter,
Though I be damned.
and the Tauren chieftain,
An excellent plan.
which are incredibly well drawn.
Back in the old days we didn't
I also have to say that
war.
this blademaster is freaking awesome.
Excellent choice.
It reminds me of so many cool Japanese inspirations.
Oh,
The interesting alchemy and craft of the witch doctor is a perfect nod to voodoo culture.
I feel you, man.
The dwarves were excellent craftsmen with their hammers, as we expect of them.
I'll take care of it.
Maybe I can't shut up enough about these type of things,
Right.
but the foot soldier outfit is also really interesting.
Of course.
It shows how well trained the Lion's Knights are and how they are ready to confront anything in their path.
Let me at him.
One could imagine that such a warrior is not a mere punching bag for a mighty orc. Anyways, I think small things like this is what makes Warcraft so recognizable and understandable. You can all imagine that the decaying undead had to use their numbers to stand up against the superior magical forces of the elves, who preferred quality over quantity and used giant forces of nature to do their bidding. The human sophisticated culture had to clash with the more tribal and honorable strength of their orc counterparts. Nevertheless, there were more races they wanted to add, such as the dragon race that consisted of one design with different roles. I have no clue what's up with that. Although Warcraft 3 Reforged was considered as a global failure, and maybe even worse, disappointment. When we look at its art for fun, we can see that it embraced a bright color palette, clearly showing the blue human, red orc, purple undead and cyan night elf hues. On a personal note, I think their approach to its bulky art style added to the power and heroic nature of the game. Like I said before, this type of style is fundamental for 3D and pixel art. Most realistic games that use dark colors and high contrast do not age well, but the ones that do have some sort of cartoony element to them. A unique, timeless flavor, so to say. I'm fantasy light novel author GP Fuchs, and while I've played many games in the past, RTS like Warcraft 3 is, in my opinion, the best example of how fantasy races should be expressed in fiction. Nothing is the same, yet familiar.